Good morning. My name is JOJO. I'm a retired warrant officer of the United States Navy. I served honorably for 30 years and I just retired last year. This is my buddy, my one and only Coco. She's very nice and sweet and she's been me for a long time now. She's 11 years old. But anyway, the reason I made this video, I got so many people or sailors asking me questions about Navy life. I did 30 years and I retired as a warrant officer I started as an E1 enlisted. I joined from the Philippines in 1992 when the US and the Philippine government had an agreement. And then I came over, I went straight to boot camp to Orlando, Florida. And then 30 years later, here I am. So I just retired last year, May of last year, and actually one of the last group that was recruited back in the Philippines. So my title is actually the last recruit, and you can also find me in the Stars and Stripes. It was also published last year. But anyway, back to my introduction here. Over the years I learned so much being in the military in the United States Navy. And it's like a dream come true. It's an American dream really, because I did so much in my career and also given so much in my career, not just to the military, also to our great country, and also in the same token give back, and in return having a good time and good life with my families. So I am blessed. I have wonderful children and a beautiful wife, and I'd like to share to you guys what I've learned so much about the Navy life, how I was able to accomplish what I have accomplished in my naval career. So my early life decision to join the military really is all about, seeing the world, having a great opportunity. So that's why it really pushed me to join the military. And back in the Philippines where I was growing up, life is hard. It's really hard. I wasn't born rich, so I came over here with a big opportunity ahead in my head, and thinking I will really accomplish what other people are talking about, and I did that. Right. So talking about military life, like I said earlier, there's so many young sailors, anybody asking me questions. People are interested to join the military. Some of them are just barely join the Navy. They would also ask me questions. And also some young guys, ladies out there asking me if it's worth it to join the military. So my thing to them is that you can join any branches of the United States forces. You can join the Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, and also we have now the US Space Force. So that's why I try to make this video, because every time I see young sailors, they always ask me questions. And every time I tell them something, I notice that I keep telling them the same stuff, almost the same stuff that I learned and I've been telling everybody. So I'm trying to share it to you guys. In that way, I could also share to you, maybe someday you want to join the military, and maybe this video can also help you a lot in the future. And maybe later on down the line, if you have any questions, any topics that you guys want me to talk about, then I will look into it and talk about it in my future videos. So my career highlights really was when I first joined the military. You will never forget, or I will never forget also, just like anybody else, the very first time when it happened to your life, when you join in and things that change your life. Right. It had affected me so much in a good ways. Looking back, I've been to deployment so many times. I have like a total of like about 13 solid deployments in my naval career, not to mention those surge deployments and the workups. So I was stationed in Japan for like 9 years. I was stationed here also in the California side for a couple of years now. And I was also stationed in Virginia. I started my career actually in Virginia. I came over to the California side, then I went to Japan. Now I'm back in California where I retired. I'm aviation maintenance by trade. And like I said earlier, I started as an E1 And you know, life is so hard back then, but then again, if you have this goal that you want to achieve good in life, you can make it really. It may not be 100% the way you wanted it, but if you will manifest that and put it in your head and ask yourself, where do you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it's going to make your life easier in the future because you have a goal. And without even knowing it, next thing you know, you're working actually towards your goal. So that's why I'm trying to share this to you guys, because not life in the Navy is always good. It's always challenging, but I tell you this, it's very rewarding if you just have a goal in life, right? And those young sailors is always ask me questions, how come I never get in trouble in my naval career? Because my thing is simple. You stay focused. Live the life of a Navy core values. Hang out with the right people and good things will happen. Hang out with the bad people, bad things will happen. So it's simple fact, right? It's a cause and effect. So it's what you make it. So in my naval career, you know, it was like I said, I was aviation maintenance by trade. I was actually aviation maintenance structural. It used to be AMS and AMH. The H is hydraulics, S is for structural. So I was an AMS. So when I joined in, I was in, they sent me to the Florida, to Pensacola, Florida, where I was selected as the RPOC, or the recruit chief petty officer. All right, so I was kind of like the head honcho of our company. And that, amongst the company, I think there were like about good 200 of us in that company. So I was the one running that company there. And there's composed of about, if I'm not wrong, maybe like about 4 to 6 companies that we all graduated at the same time. And me being one of the last recruit of the last batch, there were like I think 28 of us, and I could still remember their names. There's only 28 of us. A lot of people like to say I'm part of the last batch, but if you really look at the listing, we were in the All Hands magazine saying that these guys are actually the last recruits. Yeah, we're the last batch, but my group was the last recruits among the last batch. So going back to staying out of trouble, just stay focused, you know, and then know where you want to be. Because my career highlights is that when I joined the military, and the other thing was when I made chief petty officers, I made 8 all the way to E8, to a senior chief petty officers. Then I transitioned to the warrant officer side. So I retired as a W4 last year. So I'm very proud of that, because think about it, I was an E1 all the way to E8 to senior chief, and then I retired as a warrant officer with 30 years of honorable service. So that was the other highlights of my career when I made chief warrant officer. When I made chief, and also the other highlights is when I made chief warrant officer. And the other end of my highlights is when I retired. Okay. Not to mention that I have a wonderful family. That's part of the accomplishment that I have. So maybe in the future we'll talk more about that, to balance how you balance life, how you balance career, how you balance your personal life, and how you balance your goal. So it's all about balance. Okay, if you know when and where to put weight on a certain area, and I think it will help you propel to a better future in your naval career if you decide to make it a career. Not even in the Navy. You can also use my advice, this conversation we have right now, if you want to join the Marines, the Space Force, the Coast Guard, or the Army, you know, in any branches, okay? Because it all comes down to you and how you make it, and have what kind of goal you have in your life, okay? So I had a very diverse experience, really, talking about diversity, because when I was in Virginia, that's where I have to make a big adjustment on how life is going to be in the military, because I was on my own. But guess what? The quality of life was already good compared to where I came from, right? So I wasn't really complaining. But then again, as the transition goes, that we have this new technology and everything else, I could still remember this, that when we go on deployment, and they will call like, let's say 15,000 pounds of mail arriving, right, from the COD, and we're in this carrier. And every time they call that late in the afternoon, because it usually comes in late in the afternoon, man, it's like music to our ears. Everybody's yelling, shouting, and clapping that we have mail. And guess what? We'll wait for that mail to be distributed to each squadron, to each department, to each command. So you know how it is. There's like 5,000 people there. Imagine how many mail came in, right? So, like I said, it's like a music to our ears. Compared to now, when they land, the last time I was in the ship, when they land, the COD land and saying there's like 10,000 pounds of mail, it was just total silence. Why? Because of the internet, our technology, emails, phone calls, texting, you know. Those new technology actually changed life in the military. But we'll talk more about that in the near future. But it's just like a highlight, you know, how things are, the changes that occurred during my 30 years in military. And imagine this, when I was still new, I could still remember my chief petty officer told me, and I think I was only in E4. He told me like, you know what? Because he was retiring, so he said like, the Navy has changed so much, right? And this is like, maybe I was only like about 3 years in the military, and he was like, oh, really? I was like, how could it be? So yeah, it's time for me to go because I cannot keep up with this no more. I cannot keep up with the change. So, but you'll experience that someday. But imagine, that was like close to 30 years ago, right? You already experienced the change. How much more this time when I retired 30 years later? Imagine the change. So, yeah, so we'll talk more about that, okay? There's a lot of lessons learned also in the military life that I could talk to you guys in the near future. We will talk about the personal growth, connections, not connection in a way where you're gonna have like a connection, underground connection, but it's about networking, the importance of networking, okay? The importance of mentorship is very important. But ultimately it comes down to you, your goal, your personal goal in life. Where do you want to be 5 years from now? Where do you want to be 10 years from now? And how your life want to be when you retire? Because there's always life after the Navy. There's always life after you retire. So you have to prepare yourself. Get your education going. Talk to someone who can give you the good advice. Fun is good, but you need to balance that. When we hit deployment, when we hit ports, you know, those things, we'll talk about in the near future. And I will share really to you guys what I've learned for the past 30 years when I was active duty that propelled me from starting from an E1, make it all the way to E8 as a senior chief, and I made it to Mustang, retired as a Mustang, the Chief Warrant Officer 4. So anyway, so this is it for now, and we'll talk more again next time. So don't forget to subscribe, okay? It's my first video, so let's make it count. So subscribe and just put down in the comments whatever you guys want me to talk about in the near future, and we'll hit on it. So thank you so much and have a good day.